Nonverbal Communication for Virtual Leaders. Okay, I know that title might sound a little odd. What's the point if we can't even see the people we're talking with? But there are actually a few ways that this is important, and by the end of this lesson we'll cover 8 techniques to improve your ability to communicate effectively without saying a word, even when our teammates are miles away. In the real world, experts tell us that nonverbal communication accounts for the great majority of the total content of our communication. It stands to reason then that the more important the message, the more visual and auditory clues we want to be able to include in our conversation. That's a big reason for why, when it comes to important, sensitive, complex topics like performance evaluation, bringing change, or soliciting feedback, we want to address them in person if we can. We want all possible nonverbal cues available to help us get the message across. When that's not possible, we want to pick the most robust tool we can find, and high-quality video becomes the medium of choice. But the moment we switch to a virtual system, a few things change that are worth keeping in mind. First, the camera lens doesn't typically move around, so some of the signals we naturally send suddenly become unavailable. The things we do with our feet, our body, or sometimes even our hands can no longer help us deliver that message. And as more and more of these information sources disappear, we tend to place greater importance on the few nonverbal cues that remain. This means that we should pay even more attention to what does make it through to the other side of the camera. And second, it can help to think of the world of nonverbals as more than just about us. Everything else that's on screen is communicating too. If we're paying attention, we can use that fact to help us be clear. If we aren't, it may make things harder. So with that as background, let's talk about 8 ways to consider the importance of nonverbal communication in our virtual conversations. Shape the surroundings. To begin with, we're not the only things that will be on camera when the lights come on. What's in the background conveys a lot of information too. Rather than a dirty kitchen, a dark living room, or a messy office, we can set a better tone if we position things so that we're well lit in front of a background that we stand out against, perhaps like a simple wall or like this bookshelf. We want the focus on us, not on the distractions or detractions behind us. Set the lens. The distance from the camera lens to us is important. Too close and we look like a giant head on the screen, kind of like the ones in the opening sequence to the Brady Bunch. Not only is that a little awkward, it deprives us of the opportunity to use our upper body to help convey our message. On the other hand, if we're too far away, we appear distant, uninterested. Audio quality is likely to drop off, and while they might be able to see all of us, if they can't see our eyes and read our face, we're going to lose them. So aim for something in the middle. Ideally, if they can see the top third of our bodies, we'll have the best chance of making that virtual connection and sharing the most nonverbal cues possible. Ideally, set the lens so the top of our head is close to the top of the frame and our upper arms are visible. Suit up. It's a good idea to dress for the occasion. Even if we're tuning in from home, if we expect a professional discussion, then a way to get that feeling going is to dress like we're expecting it. We might feel more comfortable in our favorite seasonal socks, but it's better to make sure that what's on camera reflects the kind of discussion we hope to have. Speak to the camera. Eye contact with the camera is critical. We wouldn't stare at our notes when engaging with someone in normal conversation, so we shouldn't do it on video either. One Forbes report concluded that effective business conversations require us to hold eye contact 50 to 60% of the time. So if it helps, mount a photo of the team right above the camera to help visualize who we're talking with. And if possible, co-locate the camera with the screen that shows our audience. But if we have to choose when talking, speak to the camera, not the screen. Sit up. Whether it's on video or not, watch that posture. Slumping in our chairs or kicking back signals a lack of interest and focus. Sitting up and leaning forward tells people we're engaged and involved mentally and physically. This is a good practice even when the cameras are off because our body posture will be reflected in our speaking patterns. When our bodies are engaged, our minds are more likely to be energized, and our teams will be able to sense that. Show your arms. We can do ourselves a favor if our arms are visible. Aside from our face, it may be the best tool we have for helping express what we have to say, so it pays to be conscious of what they're telling others. Our folded or crossed arms may be telling the team that we're not receptive or interested. Open and visible shows a willingness to listen, and palms up is a way of inviting input from others. There's lots more to this, but the key takeaway here is that if we hide our arms, they can't help us speak. Smile. Our faces convey a lot of information even when we're not speaking, so we have to be conscious about what message we're sending. An eye roll, a frown, or even a slight eyebrow raise may carry more weight than we think it does. On top of that, we might be in a small office with our laptop somewhere, but others may be seeing us on a large monitor, or even projected on a large screen in a conference room somewhere. That little smirk may be 2 or 3 times as big to some of our teammates. Slow down. I'm not talking about dragging things out here, but especially if this is the first time event, nerves may be a little jittery, and when we're nervous we tend to want to rush things. Of course we do want to make efficient use of our time, But it's not a race to the finish, so take a deep breath, focus on the topic of discussion, and think of it as a normal conversation. When we're constrained by technology and how we lead our teams, there's a big impact on our ability to communicate effectively. An often overlooked aspect of that communication is what we're saying non-verbally. But if we pay attention to what we look like on screen and think a little bit about the non-verbal signals we're sending, we stand a much better chance of getting across that message that we hope to.